So once again, thank you for having me. Looking forward to today's topic. It's going to be real easy. You won't have to take notes. Just sit back, relax. This visualization will be on my Tableau public profile. So you look me up on Tableau public and you'll be able to download all this stuff and look under the hood, and you won't have to worry about taking notes. You can just sit back and relax today. A little bit about me, as Nelson had mentioned, I'm now working for Tableau. However, I was introduced to Tableau way back in 2009. That seems so long ago, by a person that we probably have heard before. His name is Dan Murray. He actually wrote the book, Tableau Your Data. Who knew it? We both lived in the same tiny little town of Noonan, Georgia. He came over and said, hey, I would like to show y'all something about this tool that's going to make your life so much easier. And I go, what could be easier than Excel and SSRS? And he said, let me show you. And literally within 20 minutes, we had a dashboard created looking at all our phone center data, which we had never even attempted to look at that data before. So I immediately became addicted to Tableau. I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Here, dead in the center screen is me and my lovely wife, Jennifer, our 2 children, although they're a little bit taller than that now, back when we went to Disney World. But what I want you to pay particularly attention to is this upper left slide, because that is the very, very first Tableau users group meeting. And it was in the fall. I can't remember if it was October or November of 2009. There were 32 people that were present. Once again, Dan Murray's in that picture right there in front of the whiteboard, because I think he was giving the presentation. Andy Kriebel is another Zen master now we call him Visionary, that hails from ATUG. We have Mark Jackson from Piedmont Hospital, and our very own Nelson Davis, all Tableau visionaries, people that are recognized as being, excelling in what they do with Tableau and are willing to help. So I call that first tug out because it was the very first tug in the world, really, on the globe. We were the very first. We were leading the way. We didn't even realize it. But fast forward that 10 years. Now, this was some time ago. This was 2019, 2020. I think it was 2019, or maybe in early 2020. And we had an enormous amount of people. So it has really grown. And to the point, to the slide earlier, I would suggest that if you're not a member of your TUG, if this is your very first TUG event, join one. And more importantly, try to become a leadership, within a leadership role. Try to present as often as they will have you present, because you can learn so much by presenting. It makes you better at your craft, but you can also learn from others. So it's a great resource. I encourage everyone to become members of a local TUG. There's literally thousands of them across the globe now, meeting in just about every major city. So make sure you join ATUG and raise your hand, lean in, present, and really, really make sure that you're all in. So with that, I'm going to start with this email. Now I have kind of grayed out, or have whited out, can't remember from whom it came, but this actually landed in my inbox about 2 months ago. And I've highlighted what the question was, but it was sent to Tableau support by a user way downstream within a very large organization. And so all they knew was that they were using a Tableau dashboard. And that's all they knew. They knew how to interact with it, but they were having a problem. It says, how do I change the year in the QAPI? Because the drop-down menu, it only has last year's data. So imagine this, you're sitting there, you've created dashboards, maybe another team member has created dashboards, and something lands in your inbox that says, I can't get the drop down box to reveal this year's data? Well, you would have no clue if you didn't write that dashboard. So, I could hypothetically say, well, maybe the data didn't refresh. Maybe you have something filtered prior to it that's, exclusion, but I have no idea why this drop down menu is not revealing last year's data. So that got me thinking, what can we do? What can we encourage developers to do to remedy some of this? And I thought back to my experience with Tableau as a 10-year Tableau developer. What are some of the things that I used to do to help your end user know, is the data fresh, who to contact, and that is what this whole Trinity talk is about. So I'm going to get out of my display mode here. I'm going to jump right into Tableau. That's why I love Tableau. I use Tableau even as a PowerPoint most of the time, so I could package the workbooks up, put them on Tableau Public, and then people can download them. So this is a dashboard, and you've probably seen a gazillion like it. You're happy with it. You've developed it. It has interactions, and so that when you're clicking on your action filters, it's filtering just as you expect. You're real happy. It's not an overuse of color. You've even embedded some vizzes and tooltips, and you're real happy with this. These are the three things that I would always suggest having in the back of your mind before you productionalize your dashboards. One, most people will do this. So this is a great dashboard, nothing wrong with it. Most people will say, you know what, though, I really want to brand this, meaning that I kind of want people to know, this is my organization. So I'm going to choose, fit the image and make sure it fits. And then I'm going to go, of course, when you do this here, it's going to take me to something that I wasn't going to show, but here we go. Okay, so here we go. I put in my company logo here, and you see this. I see this all day long. Might position a little bit better, but now I've kind of branded this. I've used that Tableau colors, and I've got my Tableau logo in the upper left or wherever it's most appropriate. The problem with this is, yes, you've added an image, but that's all you've done. And so a few years ago, actually probably closer to a decade now, a gentleman at Norfolk Southern by the name of Andy Piper said, there's a better way to do this, to get an image on your screen, but also use that real estate kind of in a unique way. And I'm going to take you to what I call my Tableau hover. And this is just a sheet. Rather than using an image, I am going to use a sheet. And most typically, I will take the sum of the number of records or the minimum of number of records and just display that as text, which is, of course, kind of boring. But I want to change that text to a shape. And then using my custom shapes, I can go in and select any number of custom shapes, and I have a number of shapes in my Tableau repository called Tableau icons. I'm going to select that, and now I have a Tableau icon similar to my image that I used prior. However, now I have something a little bit even cooler. I have the availability to use tooltips so that when a customer hovers over this Tableau icon, he or she are going to see anything I wish to display. For instance, how to use this dashboard might be just a few little lines of what the dashboard does. But I can also put in insert some fields that I will never have to update, such as what's the workbook name, what's the data source, and most importantly, when was this data last refreshed? So I put this all into my tooltips, and now when my user hovers over that image, I get a tooltip. And of course, I could modify that to be one author, two authors. I could say, the digital transformation team, whatever I wanted to put in there, I have access to, so that when I have now using that hover, I can see that very quickly. Yes, I could put some more information. I probably could put in something about, for more information, hover over it. What I typically did, and what we typically did in my former life, was that we would just train users. Every dashboard was branded. If you wanted to see information about that, hover over our company logo. It's going to show you some more information. People get used to that. People understand that. Probably though, as you're starting out, you probably want to put something here, very maybe small and indescript, saying, hover here for more information about the dashboard. So that is tip number one. Tip number two is then, okay, Paul, if you're not that crazy about images, how would you use an image? And that leads me to tip number two. I'm going to float in an image here. And I'm going to select from, I'm going to go ahead and center that and choose. Here we go. It is going to go to a little email icon. I'll apply that and click OK. Maybe resize it just a little bit. Now, most people say, well, Paul, where are you getting these images? I am just Googling. Google is your friend. I take these images. I use something called Snagit Editor, then to color it as I see fit. Some people use, literally use PowerPoint. So you can use a number of, or Paint. Anything will work. And this allows me to kind of customize a set of images. I needed this to be white. If it was black up here on a blue background, it probably wouldn't be that useful. So I've just got an image out here. It's not going to do anything yet, but it's just going to display this little email icon. And I'm going to click the drop down and click Edit Image. And the cool thing about actually placing an image on your dashboard is that this little option here, URL opened when image is clicked. And I'm just going to drop in a little mail to URL. And actually, I can do a couple of things here. I can show to whom I want this to be emailed to when I click, but I've also got another option here, which is the subject line. I can actually embed what the subject line is going to be when my end user clicks on that icon. So let's look and see what that happens. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK and apply. And now when I click on that image, it's going to open up my default email. It is going to mail to whomever I designate. That could be an individual, could be a team, it could be one or two individuals. And it automatically embedded the subject. So now my end user says, I have a question about this dashboard, blah, blah, blah. And they will then be able to email either the developer or the team of developers with any questions they may have about the dashboard. So very, very easy way for an end user to get to the development team. So what does this all look like on server? Well, let's see here. We are going to go to right here. And this is what I have now on server. Now I have added the little text here that says, have questions, email the developer. And so they click that, and this is setting up or is up on my Tableau test environment, my online. Once again, I have my hover. I now have my way to contact the developers as an end user. Everything is great. That is tip number two. Finally, And this is probably the easiest thing to do once you're on Tableau server. The two things that I showed prior to this point, I'm all on desktop with, on my local machine. This next tip actually works best when you are on Tableau server. So I'm just going to edit this existing dashboard. And here we are in edit mode. Looks very, very much like I'm on Tableau desktop, but I'm actually editing it in my browser. And so the third thing I wanted to show was how to embed Ask Data directly on your dashboard. Ask Data is relatively new. Most people, when they attempt to navigate it, they're actually going into the server themselves to do that. And I was thinking, well, is there a better way? And this, I think, is a better way. On the lower left within the objects sections, you can see that I now have an Ask Data object that I can float right onto my dashboard. With Ask Data, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it is a way to use natural language programming to just ask questions of this data set that I'm currently using within the Superstore Sales dashboard. Now, there is one little thing that you have to set up prior to. You have to create a lens for Ask Data to work. I've already created a lens, and typically a lens is even more curated than the data set that you're using for your dashboard. For instance, if there were IDs in there that were kind of meaningless to your end user, you probably would want to exclude that from your lens. So this is kind of a much highly not really aggregated view, but more curated. So I'm taking out columns that wouldn't make sense for an end users to query with natural language programming. So with this, I typically take this entire Ask Data and superimpose it on my dashboard here, like so. Now, obviously, this would not be a great interface because it's impeding the way that I'm looking at my dashboard. I wanted to give the users an option to go into Ask Data. And with that, I can just click on the option button and I can add a show hide button. And here it is. So what does that mean? That means that when I click on my X, I'm going to hide that. And when I click now on my little hamburger, I'm going to show my Ask Data. Okay. So I'm on my Ask Data. Here we go. And now I can say, I don't know, some profit. And I'm able to sum profit and maybe say by, I don't know, state. And so now by using just natural language, I am able to build visualizations on the fly using Ask Data. That's just literally one click away from within your dashboard. All right, so we're real close here. We have our Ask Data button here. And I can toggle back and forth and the users can toggle back and forth. But now you're saying, well, Paul, that looks great, but you've spent a lot of time in making sure everything looks good. And you've got this big, ugly black X up there and this hamburger doesn't really match what the look and feel of my dashboard. But once again, very, very easy to change. I click the option button here. I'm going to edit that button. And when the item is shown, I can say, all right, how do I want to present this? And what image do I want to use when the item is currently shown or if the item is currently hidden? And so I can choose images. In fact, once again, using my my Snagit editor, I've just created these little images for open and close, and I can choose that one. So now when I am looking at this, and I think I did exactly opposite, but I'll go with it. I'll publish the view, because now when I view this, I now have a dashboard with buttons here that will say, all right, here's my dashboard. I want to open Ask Data. I want to query that. I find what I want. I click the button and it changes back from close to open. So real 3 easy things that you can add really within a matter of minutes. A hover that has information about the workbook, the authors, and when it was last refreshed. A quick way of adding a button here to email either the developer or the team of developers, and finally a way to really quickly get to your Ask Data if someone has maybe a question that's a little bit deeper than the dashboard is currently displaying, and real quick, easy way to get to your Ask Data interface. With that, I think I have finished. So if there's any questions, I guess, I don't know if we finally got the Q&A or the chat working, but real easy way. I'll have this up on my Tableau public profile, and you can download it, look it under the hood, even capture the images if you wish, and make them your own.
Paul.
Yes.
This has been great, man. Ooh, hold on. Little button. See what happens. And
where are you? There he is.
Paul, I loved the inclusion of the Ask Data with the lens. It was one of those things that as we were playing with our Tableau Online instance, like lenses showed up, and I was like, what is this? And like, I think it's finally gotten to a place, to your point, where it's like, hey, this is what a lens is, and this is how you use it, and you giving people the ability to leverage it inside of the dashboard, I think is super cool.
I used to have a dashboard, and it might be on public as well. I called it it called the Perfect Viz. You might remember that, Nelson, because I showed that a couple of times. Okay. And my Perfect Viz was a little dot in the page. I even showed this to all the Tableau employees way back in the day, and it was just a dot. And you know, this was long before animation, but I basically used the pages, and it took that dot and created a unicorn, because I said there is no such thing as a perfect viz. In fact, the perfect viz is going to generate as many questions as it answers. And with natural language programming, the ability for business users to come up and ask their own questions, that's a game changer. The problem is you don't want your users to have to stop here, go into server, even though they're in server, and start from another, from step one. This actually, if they have additional questions, so long as it's baked into the data set, they'll be easily be able to get to them in literally one click.
Love it. Nicole, what'd you learn? Anything fun?
Definitely the Ask Data. It's one that, because you have to like click out and it's a little bit more nuanced, like we just really have avoided implementing it, because I can barely get people to like click the download an image or download a crosstab button on the server, let alone like go out and do the Ask Data. But that's really cool to be able to get it in there as well. I love the hover tooltips on an image. I use that on my Tableau public ones all the time to shove my data sources in there, so I don't have to make them pretty. But it's a great one for business dashboards too.
Anything that we can do as developers to help the end user get to their answers quicker. Typically, probably all of the questions go onto an IT ticket, and you know that IT loves to manage their tickets. And then they've got to figure out, well, who the owner of the dashboard, and then try to get them involved. This takes out so many needless steps, usually can be answered in a question, in a sentence or two. And it makes just for a much happier environment. And then finally, the ask data component, very quick way of without, and they could have done this before, right? They could have downloaded the data, maybe investigated it in a row or column kind of format, but this gives them within that ask data container really to be able to dig a little bit deeper with questions, and they don't even have to really even know Tableau. Tableau will even help with get the right answer or right questions asked.
Well, and Paul, one of the things that I think you're pointing out that I think is really worthwhile for everybody who's on this call to think through is like you're talking about, I've learned these things, and some of these things, if they're done well, they actually become kind of organizational norms. Like we normally put this logo up here and we train our users that this logo is always here and it always does this thing. And like, one of the things I would suggest is like that's like the best and highest use of like the IT side, like to make sure that we've got that level of consistency so that we're not creating noise. Well, Paul always does this, and Susie always does that, and Jane always does this, and they do 3 different things, and so the users don't have consistency, right? This is a great opportunity for enablement of here's how we do it here. And then the same thing with Ask Data, right? If we create these lenses, you also have the ability to create like synonyms and phrases and stuff that allow you to take, the column name in a database and turn it into the way that people actually speak. Because there's nothing more frustrating than, well, they gave this to me and they told me that this is how I could answer the next question. And, but that part wasn't done yet. Right. So,
and that speaks to
sure those things happen.
That speaks to something that you've always been sensitive about, which is branding. And you've worked with, and I've known you now for over a decade. You've worked with some of the biggest companies here in Atlanta. And, so if you have a company that's, we won't use any real names, but, Lumber and Hammers, you want all that formatting to be, you want the presentation of the dashboards to have that same branded look and feel. And so that everyone's eye is always drawn to the right place on the sheet, and that they can quickly identify any issues and be able to contact people with any questions. So branding is really, it's an easy thing. It's a fun thing because you go to the marketing department and every marketing department has got a 2-inch binder of this is what our business cards look like. This is what our website. You use those color schemes and you build your dashboard around those color schemes.
Yeah. Well, and so much is, Paul, to your point, comes back to this idea of user experience, right? And when we think about the word experience, it's what is the feeling, the emotion that is generated as I engage with this, right? And oftentimes, like we don't get a second chance to make a first impression, and so you want, this to be informative and useful so that people will come back the next time they have a question, look at the data again, and so forth. Because, if you build a dashboard, nobody uses it and the adoption doesn't happen, did you really build anything? And so that's always the, value as a function of adoption when it comes to analytics at the end of the day. So, yeah.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah.